brush, come in, and again, get yourself a nice bead. Now at this point, if you decide that you wanted to take off the excess, and in between, you can see in between the space, I can feather back and then use the body of the brush, and all I'm going to do is walk it from side to side. I'm not pulling anything, just walking everything forward, right? Walking everything forward, really using the body of the brush to get it into the proper positioning so that I have room to file, okay? And then again, once it gets down to the end, if I choose to use my brush and blend it back, I can do that. So for those of you guys that are working on tips, there's no difference. It's gonna be the exact same thing, because what you're doing is you're overlaying over an extension that you glued onto the surface of the natural nail. I'm trying to create a little bit of thickness and trying to fill that negative space. That way when I go in and file it, I have room, right? I can sit here and just mess with this until it's absolutely done, dry, and ready to rock and roll. This is Young Nails. Brush is Young Nails. This is my signature series brush. Okay, so let's just assume you've mastered all that. Let's assume that you're like, dude, I don't need to build a free edge. I want to focus on speed sculpting. What do I do, Greg? You're going to be able to take this, I'm going to be able to place it, and I'm not going to do the prep. I just want to be able to show you the technique so that you understand what to do. Right, so as that is drying, again, your handle, open this up, and if you choose to come underneath, right, so for those of you guys that are practicing, you can get underneath and use your finger just to lightly get it straight. So this is just a great drill, especially for those of you that are learning how to sculpt. All right, let's say those of you guys out here are learning how to speed sculpt, and you're like, I need to learn how to just pick up one bead and then rock it down towards the free edge in the least amount of effort. Well, what you want to do is you need to make sure that you're going to be able to get something large enough, right? And I'm not trying to create the same structure as I did here. I'm trying to create a shell that's going to lay down tight to the cuticle area, tight to the side walls, and build out onto the free edge. So for all you nail ninjas out there that absolutely shred with your brush and your acrylic, you're going to be able to take your brush, load it, and then I need to go monster. Bounce, 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 bounce. Get myself something absolutely burly. And then what I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to release and trust the flow, right? So what I want to be able to do is I need it to roll down past the form. Now you're going to notice how everything is rolling nice and tight at the sidewalls as well. As soon as it gets past this point, right, I don't have to worry about here. All I'm doing is using the body of the brush, and I'm going to start bringing it down onto the form, right? So I have great workability. You're going to notice, right, as I start to brush this out, right, I don't have anything running onto the skin, but what I do have is I have the ability to kind of stretch this out, right, and shape this onto the nail form in just one. Okay, now again, if I had to go down and apply a second bead to kind of support the free edge length, I'll be able to do that. But for those of you guys out there that are learning how to sculpt, there's more ways, right, to get the job done, especially if you're in a rush. And so what I'm able to do is get it out to this point, actually stretch it out into the thickness of desire. Most of my thickness is going to be up here in the stress area, right? If I'm looking at this from the side profile, I would have to say, yeah, like I have enough support through that area, but I'm probably going to need a little bit more there. And a lot. What I would do again is take maybe a gentle amount, and then just right here, I would feather this up, and then use the body of the brush to walk over the top, right? You're not pulling anything. And then lightly use the base of the brush to walk over the tip of the nail to basically support the thickness that you built out in one bead. Right, this is a great way for you to practice mastering the acrylic consistency. This is a great way for you to practice if you're trying to do overlays on a regular basis, because in the end, what you're trying to do is just create structure, right? So that it sets you up for the perfect, basically, nail to file into perfection. Okay, so once this is built out, we're going to let this dry. Now this, again, this is done, this is set. I know that this, there's no more flexibility. That's rock hard. This is gonna take time. And depending on the designs you do, like, because I built this out the way it is, I know this free edge is still malleable. And what I mean by that is if I decided that I wanted to take some type of an implement or a tool and do some impressions, or take I would say some type of tooling or netting to push inside, there's all different types of effects that you could use to go inside and create some real wicked designs. I'll give you an example, right? I mean, this is still drying, but you're going to notice if you had, just say, a brush cap and you actually pushed inside, like if I wanted to go in at this point, right, and literally just push like just a little bit, you can see I'm actually able to push in just because I know the free edge is not completely set, but I can go ahead and actually push in some really cool impressions. And then if I wanted to fill that with color, you would be able to do that, right? So there's, again, multiple ways of creating effects on the nails using acrylic. It's not just, one and done. If you decided that you wanted to kind of fill that out, you're gonna notice that if I took something bright white, right, and then I just kind of filled that space, and again, I'm just using the wet acrylic just to brush into the surface of the nail, you're gonna be able to fill those lines and create some really, really cool looks. Right. And I'd recommend at this point, again, don't worry about, you can actually remove some of the excess. You can go in, oops, you can even see this wasn't even fully set, but I'm just gonna brush that in. You can make it messy, it doesn't matter, because once you file it, it's all going to file into shape, make it look hot. There's all kinds of designs you can do, all kinds of impression tools you could use. Just a different way of sculpting to create some original type of work without physically having to go in and use a paintbrush while you're doing that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hand file. I always want to be able to remove the sharp edges of my hand file so that we don't cut our clients while we're working. Since we're going to be filing, right, a coffin-shaped nail, I'm going to keep contact on the side, right, straight contact on the side, and that way you're going to be able to see like a really, really straight ledge that builds up, and then I can square off my free edge. One of the keys to your success when you're actually filing your lower arches is to turn the hand to the side. So if the lower arch is hanging below the growth channel, you want to be able to line your file at that point. Do not make, right, this is starting to set. Don't make the mistake of just going and hacking into your side like this. If you decide to do that, you're going to end up putting a ledge right here on the side, right? We don't want to build nails where, like, if that's your nail, right? We don't want you to build a notch right here. And that happens if you don't know how to file your sidewalls well. In order to get your sidewalls, your lower arches tight, you have to be able to turn the client's hand to the side, line it up at the lowest point, start from the lowest point, and file up until your hand file basically reaches that corner. And that way you're going to have a perfect extension from the end of the growth channel all the way out to that point. So the same thing on the opposite side. You can see all of it's hanging. I want to line it up parallel to the finger on the bottom. Keep contact all the way through. And that way you're going to be able to file it so that it's dead straight, right? So your free edge, it could be dead square or tapered, either way. Once the sides are shaped, what we're going to end up doing is taking our safety bit. I need a little bit of length, right? So for those of you guys that are filing into shape, I want to be able to show you that we are going to be working, it's hard to tell, but like I'm going to get this to about 11,000 RPMs, right? The upper arch. So I don't need that much work. Just barely touch here, then right here on top, and then really start refining towards the front end to really create beautiful structure from side to side. And then if I'm looking down the barrel of the nail, since I have a lot of thickness, right, I want to try to get an even C curve, right? So you can even see if I just lightly touch underneath, you can see that straight wall. What I want to be able to do is work in one direction towards myself, one direction towards myself, so that we're able to build a beautiful even C curve from side to side, right? And then again, once the volume is taken down, then what we want to be able to do is use just again, when you're going around the cuticle area, don't go like this. If you go side to side, then this is what ends up happening, right? You don't want to be working on your client, you're like, whoop, right? You don't want to be able to slip. If you're using an overgrip position, prevents the client from looking up at your finger. You're going to be able to balance your pinky here, and you're going to be able to work around reducing volume, right? So you set yourself up for a great hand filing session. Okay, so once we're done doing that, I'm going to come through, file out the rest, and then set ourselves up so that we do hand filing. So once the bulk is removed, then what we want to be able to do is use our hand file. This is where I'm going to come in and do a little bit of detailing. Love to go around the cuticle area first, just to make it as tight as I possibly can. General rule of thumb, if you're running your finger around the cuticle area and it gets stuck, it's going to lift. So what you want to be able to do is, again, try to get it tight, right? Remember, if this is the back of the cuticle, you're not trying to build a ledge. You're trying to build it flush to the nail, flush to the nail. All right, so if your application is tight and then all I have to do is run my file around that back end a few times, I'm done. Notice even with this side here, I'm not picking. I go contact. See, I hold my file like this, contact into the nail and allow the hand file to fall. So this is going to reduce a lot of the thickness on both sides. And what it's going to leave us with is, last but not least, right, I need to adjust it, right, client profile, and then I make a peace sign rested in between my knuckles, and then I run it down the very, very tip of the nail so that we're able to really shape the tip into absolute perfection. All right, so last but not least, I'm just gonna run a little bit of a buffer around the edges to make it nice and smooth. And then if we take, again, our swipe and we clean the surface, you can see how pretty that is. Always remember that when you're working with this, what we want to be able to do is run a little bit of protein bond along the edge. And then let's go ahead and take some finish gel. I think I have some right here, just so that you guys can actually see what the shine looks like. That glitter looks dope. I love it. All right, so from start to finish, we want to make sure that you're really understanding how you're going to be able to take the powder and create something, and again, if it's just mixing in a glitter and creating the look, that's one thing, but there's so many different options to be able to build the nails and create absolute perfection. The glitter is little guy, and I mixed it with Speed Frosted Pink. So take advantage, 30% off all the powders right now. Some crazy deals at Young Nails.